Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, Sarah, and good
Good
morning,
morning.
badasses.
I know, had a little bit of technical issues there this morning, but hey, we're going with the flow, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good morning.
And so I could see we already have people joining us.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Hey, it's Bruce. He said, let's get after this. Awesome.
Good morning, Bruce.
And then we have Andrea. Oh, welcome, Andrea. She says, good morning.
Good morning.
We do have some Facebook users, by the way. We cannot see your name. So if you can make sure to go to streamyard.com/Facebook. Same thing with LinkedIn and YouTube, just so we can make sure that we see your beautiful names. But we do have 2 individuals just saying good morning. And so
yeah,
Kate,
it looks like it's Carmen and Myra. So I think you might have to do it more than once. I don't know why it works like that.
I don't know. Yeah. And so we have Renee joining us. Good morning, Renee. So
Good
Kate,
morning.
What did you do for 4th?
We did a few things. Jenna and some of the kids are really into ATVing, going like,
oh, that's right,
mudding. Yeah. It's not really
Jenna
my thing.
Was just mud head to toe in the picture that I saw.
Yes, head to toe, and they all enjoy it. They're like, "Okay, let's go into the swamp and get muddy," and they go and they literally come back like covered. It's not my thing. Not my thing. So I like to. Yeah, I love to go fast and but you toss like mud into it, and I'm like, nah. So
I think it would be super fun. Yeah, I think it would be super fun. I loved 3-wheeling, so I had a 3-wheeler growing up, and I remember running it into the fence a couple of times. I go so fast, jumping over the hill. But I've never gone mudding. That would actually be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, they love it. And it is a lot of fun. I mean, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, we have some more people joining us. Good badass morning to you, Eric, as well. And Kim is joining us. Good morning, ladies. And then we got a special person showing up. Oh, I'm having problems with the thing. He said good morning. And so he's lurking in the back. We're actually going to be bringing him on here soon. And so thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And today we actually have Jesse, or as his mother knows him or prefers to be addressed, is Jesus Hernandez. And how I was introduced to Jesse is I was connected to his co-host, Jen, and I saw them on something called No BS Tribe. And I was like, what is this? And so I went into it and started to take a look at it. And I ended up going to their session or their live broadcast on Saturday morning at 9. I think it's 9 o'clock. And it was just an amazing time. So I'm super excited to bring Jesse on this morning. One, he's just high energy. He is full of energy. And the other thing that I really love about them is that everything is also about vulnerability. It's also about just being human and treating people as getting to know them, connecting with them. And so, and I have to say that they were actually the individuals that inspired me to reach out to Kate and say, hey, Kate, I'd like to do a show with you. So I'm excited about bringing Jesse on today because he's really the person that helped inspire me to say, you know what, take a leap, Sarah. Just do it. And you've been building up this content and all these different things and working on yourself all these years. And Kate and I connected for multiple years talking about these types of things. And it just ended up being amazing time to see that.
Yeah. So we're super grateful to Jesse and his No BS tribe. And then he's involved in like a million things. So we'll let him tell you all about what he's up to. And,
that's right. So let's bring him on. Hang on 1 second.
Good morning.
Good morning. What is happening?
Hello, Jesse.
Hello.
I'm trying to get the technology aspect of the layout to work. And I don't know there we go. It's a different one. There we go. Now let me drag you over. Technology this morning is oh, there we go. That's much better. Now we can really see you. And so look at you. Nice and bright in your Hawaiian shirt today.
Yes. Hawaiian shirt Friday. Every Friday.
Is it every Friday you wear Hawaiian shirt?
I let me clarify. When people are going to see me, yes. If I'm just like working at home, no. I usually every day my uniform is my hoodie. Just in case, like meaning I don't wear it unless somebody says, "Hey, you got time for a call?" Oh, throw the hoodie on, have the call, and then take it off as soon as I'm done. So I can be comfortable.
So Bruce has a question for you. What? No fishnets?
Bruce, I do have a fishnet hoodie, and Bruce knows very well that I am going to be bringing with me to New York. So I'm headed to New York to hang out with Bruce at the end of the month. It is Jennifer approved, so I won't be in trouble. I just got to say that out loud.
All right, perfect. Well, before we get too far in to all of the shenanigans that you get yourself into, can you tell us a little bit about who is Jesse? Tell us a little bit about your background. What are you doing now?
Oh my goodness. So there's a bunch. I guess in terms of background, I started my professional career as an apprentice plumber. My dad's a plumber. And so right out of high school, got a summer job. The plan was to like save up money to pay for room and board at Tyler Junior College. And what I found was I walked on a job site as a commercial renovation at a local high school here in San Antonio. And it was like the first time I was in a space with strangers and I felt like I belonged. And the thing about it was there was a lot going on. So when I was in school, I struggled because I was very disruptive. My energy is a little like not good suited for the classroom. And on a job site, there's all kinds of noise. The work is super, super physical. It's got a competitive element to it. There's a lot of problem solving, figuring it out type of thing that has to happen. And it was like all of this sensory input was enough finally for me to like focus and feel a part of. And so, I worked for about 6 weeks. I already knew like, okay, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to do this. But my dad connected me with the job and he absolutely did not want me to be a plumber. But towards the end of the summer, I had to tell him like, dude, like, I'm not going to go to school. I'm going to do this. So I did. And the reason I'm sharing this is because it's kind of set the stage for a lot of what I do now. But so I found an apprenticeship, signed up for plumbing apprenticeship, completed 4 years of that. But, the first 2 years of my apprenticeship, I knew that I was enjoying it. I knew that I was being fulfilled and that it was this environment that I could grow in. But at the same time, I felt less than because you know, the questions of, oh my God, you're wasting your potential, and what do you plan to do? Where are you going to be in the future? Construction, all like, I had all of that. The internal dialogue, and also, you know, family members that cared. They weren't being ugly, but they did care, because I'm a nerdy kid, or was a nerdy kid. And so college, yeah, I could have done it. Anyway, so there was this internal struggle the whole time. Turns out I was able to make an amazing career out of that, and didn't know, right? And so that was one of the big things was, you know, when I went to school, the message was go to college or flip burgers. And let me tell you, I appreciate me some burger flippers, right? Like, you got to make a living and I got to eat burgers. So that's a perfect combination. But there was nothing in between except for maybe the military. And so the feeling or believing that I was a failure because I wasn't in university was real. It was very difficult for me to overcome. And then the path that I experienced has been totally fulfilling. I mean, I 100% believe, had it not been for me choosing my career in the industry, in the trades, I would not have done any of the things that I'm doing now. Like, it was all a direct path to where I am. And so because of that, you know, I was in the field for 8 years, you know, installer, foreman. And then I got into leadership roles, and then management, and then middle management, blah, blah, blah. So I got to experience the whole breadth. I worked in the trade side of the business for about 20 years. Then I went to work for a general contractor for about 3.5 years, worked for like an owner contractor for about 9 months. And now I just started my personal business, my independent consulting business. And I have an unfair advantage because I got to see the different facets of the business and experience some of the pains that all businesses have. And when I say experience, I don't mean as an observer. I mean as suffering the pain of this poorly designed systems that are in businesses in general. And that's what my consulting business is based on. But when COVID hit, so before COVID hit, I would take any opportunity to go speak at schools or anywhere to parents, students, and educators about careers in the industry. And I'm like straight up, I ain't against university. I think it's awesome if that's what you want to do. And it's important to your family that you get that degree, or the career that you're going after requires, go do that thing. Where I have a problem is so many people like me are getting pushed into that space. And that space is not designed for people like me to thrive and grow as an individual. And this is why I advocate for the trades, because it is a space for people like me. And when I say people like me, I'm not just talking about like super good looking. I'm talking about energy, like physical work, like to sweat, like the camaraderie, like to problem solve, like to get dirty, have energy that is distracting for most environments. That's what I mean when I say people like me. And coming into, you know, I'm a huge advocate for finding the conditions and the environment in which you can thrive and grow as a human being. And there are multiple venues for that. Construction is one of them. Now, COVID hit, so I couldn't do any public speaking. I couldn't go to the schools anymore, right? And so that part, you know, one, it was advocating. Two, it was fulfilling, right? To be able to connect with people and hear parents and educators like, wow, I had no idea that construction had that to offer. And so I needed an outlet. And I was complaining at home, you know, sitting in my room, all comfortable and safe while the rest of my people were out there working. And I was like, man, I need an outlet. And so I had just been interviewed on a podcast. My very first podcast with my buddy, Adam Gates, architect here in San Antonio. And I said, well, I'll start a podcast. Like, duh, right? So I called him up and I'm like, hey, bro, like, how do you do this podcasting thing? So we went back and forth. Turned out I had everything I needed to do a podcast. So we launched the Learnings and Missteps podcast. The whole point of that was to enhance the image of careers in the trades by interviewing people that have built a career in the trades to highlight the amazing things that they do, because too often the construction worker is pointed at as go to school or you're going to be doing that, or right, like just lowbrow type perspective. And the truth is there's so many construction workers that have amazing lives and they're doing beautiful, amazing things for their community and their families, but we don't think about that. And so that's what I wanted to do through the podcast. That led to live streaming. So Jen and I, we did the first live streams we did was 5S in relationships, which is based on some Dear John letters I got at the end of a relationship. And that turned into like that, what that presented was this vulnerability thing, like this big need in the industry, in the omniverse, to have like revealing, authentic, scary, uncomfortable conversations. You know, we were doing, Jennifer and I were doing it, but what we found was people in the chat were like sharing their stuff and wanting to get more personal, more vulnerable about stuff. And so we leaned into that. That turned into a book, Lean in Love, 5S Love Letters. That's out there. Along the way, I was planning to launch my business. In my head, I had to earn credibility, right? Because I still have this weird self-defeating self-image, right? Like I still see like all my shortcomings and all my poor decisions, etc. I see myself through that lens a lot. But as a result of being visible on social media, podcasts, etc., people started reaching out to me for consulting services. And I was like, wow, like who told you to call me? Like, you're calling the wrong guy. You got the wrong number, man. Like, no, I heard you. And so that signaled to me like, oh, I already have some credibility. Like I can do this thing. So I launched my business about 15 months ago, April of last year. And then Jen and I transitioned to No BS with Jen and Jess. Oh, I see Carrie talking about bring back the trades. I am super connected with Stephanie Brown and Steve Turner with Bring Back the Trades. Yes, Carrie, thank you for that. That they are a phenomenal program that's doing big things for the trades. They have scholarships every month. I think they went from 1 to 2 a month. Steve Turner's amazing. Wow. So anyhow, turned into another book, got a bunch of live streams going out, got podcasts, got a community, emotional bungee jumpers. I'm just having too much fun. That is how I'll summarize that.
And then you're also traveling and presenting places. And as I started to get involved with Jesse and follow the different things he's doing, I'm like, when does this guy sleep? Like, seriously.
He doesn't need to sleep. Look at him. Yeah, he's full of energy. Yeah.
Well, you know, an important thing, like the traveling element, part of it is for work. So I have clients that are not here in San Antonio. And so I get to travel and serve them, which is awesome because they're awesome. And I also, when I quit full-time work and started my own business, I made a commitment to myself. And that commitment was to take at least 3 days off every single month, which was a huge life shift for me because I struggled taking like self-care. I believed in it. I advocated for it, but I sure as hell didn't practice it. And when I quit, I said, okay, I'm really going to have to make a significant shift because now I'm my own boss. And I have an extremely addictive nature. I'm extremely obsessive. And if I don't put something in place to meter or gauge my rest, I'm going to wear myself out. Mm-hmm. And so that was the commitment, right? Once a month, 3 days off every month. And so what does that mean when I take 3 days off? Normally I would say, well, I'm just not going to work. And then I'd stay home and I would work. So I said, no, I've got to change my environment. So Sometimes I'm camping. Sometimes, like this month, I'm headed to New York. That's part of that deal. Because that really forces me to take time off, to be in a different environment entirely. And, the interesting thing is, and, my therapist told me and other people told me, like, you need the time off so you can recharge. Like, yeah. It's counterintuitive to me. But the amount of time that I actually spend or invest in self-care turns into ideas. Like, I have more brain space to kind of evaluate what's going on, evaluate how people are responding. That's how emotional bungee jumpers surfaced. And then after that, then it was reciprocal propulsion, which is like a retreat, small retreat. And then the book, like, these ideas all come from my time off, which doesn't make sense. And when I'm off, when I take those little hiatuses, I record my Monday morning hug. So every Monday on LinkedIn and all the other socials, I post a video. It's a thought. They're about 90 seconds to 3 minutes long. And I record them while I'm out and about. And so it really looks like, man, Jesse's traveling all the time. Like, no, not really. Like, I recorded 8 videos and then I release them in, like, as we go into the future. So it just kind of seems like I'm all over the place. But yes, I do. I get to go to different conferences and speak there and support and get invited to different places. It's magical. And again, like, I'm a plumber, right? That doesn't make sense. But, some of the skills that craft workers have is you get a pile of material, you get some information, and then you have to figure out how to bring that to life. And that's the same type of thinking that I apply now into, like, my business and some of the things, online products that I'm creating, et cetera, social media. Like, a year ago, I didn't know how to edit video. Now I have video, like, people are probably sick of my videos because I post them all the time, but I learned how to do that. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that you get out of experimenting. I mean, just like y'all started a live stream. How has that been for you? Like, there's no script or recipe or formula that says, here's how you do live streams and have a good time doing it. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah,
Exactly. And so, Jesse, I know that part of being a part of the No BS tribe is that you guys get very vulnerable. And one of the things that you shared, and that you also have a book, is related to missteps. And some of the things you just said as well about your parents considering it potentially a failure if you didn't go to college, the transition of how you ended up going from the trades to what you're doing now. Can you talk a little bit more about that particular journey and some of the things that you ended up learning along the way? I know that there were some things that happened in your life that you really took some missteps, and I don't want to get too much into your book, but if you can help provide to our audience some of those things that you learned, a part of your missteps, and how that sort of brought you to where you are today.
Absolutely. So the title of the podcast is Learnings and Missteps, which there's no connection to construction, right? Construction professionals and learnings and missteps. And so, like, when I picked the name of the podcast, I had some friends, awesome friends, who were like, man, like, Jesse, that's a big leap that you're trying to force people to make. I'm like, fair, you're right. I see that. And in the conversations, like the interviews that I have on that podcast are based around 4 questions. One is, what do you want the L&M family to know about you? The other is, what were your earliest career aspirations? The third is, what's a significant learning that you've had from a painful misstep? And then lastly is, what footprint do you want to leave on the world? Those questions are applicable to anybody in the universe, period.
Right.
What happens is having a conversation around those questions helps people understand that success, growth, contribution, financial freedom, all of those things is not a straight line. And too many of us think, I used to think, like, I'm going to be a success. And when I am a success, that's it. Like, it's not like you arrive.
Mm-hmm.
The successes I've like what people see, or maybe more accurately, what I choose to show most often is the end result of a whole lot of messy, crummy mistakes, pains, right? Like people ask, I think about teachers. My two best teachers throughout my whole life is pain and failure. Like period. And Sarah, you mentioned, right, like along the way, so I've wrestled with addiction since I've been a teenager. I just celebrated 7 years of sobriety on June 23rd. Thank you.
Congrats.
And that's not the first time I tried being sober, right? I've been sober many times and then fell off. And so
Me too.
so you know, right, like it's there's a lot, and we all have something that we're dealing with. Now, the learnings and missteps, the idea behind that is to help people understand, like most of the people I've interviewed, they didn't pick the career that they're on. They were going down another path. And going down that path, they figured out like, this doesn't serve me. I'm not enjoying it. There was something that was they were experiencing less joy than they wanted. Like the joy they anticipated was not there. And so they went a different path, and they ended up finding more joy here, like in the trades or in construction. And I think that's just life. Like it's not as if, I mean, hell, if somebody would have asked me 3 years ago if I was going to have a podcast and live stream and have books out, I said, you're freaking nuts. There's no way I'm that, like me, that I can't do that. But I do, right? Like I've got live streams every other week for No BS with Jen and Jess. Then I have OG Spotlight. I got Learnings and Missteps. I got a business. I got the book. I got all this stuff. They weren't clean and shiny. I screwed them up, and I screw up all the time. But I learned from those things, right? I got to, Jennifer and I were interviewed by Matt and Kyle on CM Mentors podcast, and I repeated a quote. I still don't know who I heard it from, but the quote is, failure is the price of entry. Right? Like it's not shiny. Or maybe it is. I just don't know how to do it that way. Like everything I learned through experimentation, right? I think it's going to come out this way. I don't know until I do the damn thing. And when I do the damn thing, then I find out like, ooh, that was a bad decision. Oh, I need to adjust that. Oh, I offended somebody. Oh, I forgot to call like there's all these things that I won't know until I do it. Same thing with like, on No BS with Jen and Jess, we talk about the human side of business. And we talk about the messy stuff. And I don't talk about articles that I've read or podcasts that I've listened to. I talk about the dumb shit that I've done, right? Like I've made enormous mistakes in terms of valuing people and valuing relationships. I learned from them, and that's helped me, right? I've made enormous mistakes in terms of self-care and investing in myself versus buying shiny crap. And I've learned from that. I've made enormous mistakes in financial decisions, right? Like it in my head, in Jesse land, the only way to get anywhere is through screwing up, is through getting dirty. What people see, like Sarah, we connected through No BS with Jen and Jess. You met me there, but you don't see all the arrests that I've had, right? You don't see the almost $100,000 in legal fees and penalties that I've paid. You don't see all the people that I've lied to. Nobody sees all the sacrifices I've made, all the self-doubt that I've had. Nobody sees that. You see this shiny, handsome specimen with the Hawaiian shirt on and think everything's like just glorious.
Perfect.
It's not. It's hard. And there's a book I read called The Obstacle is the Way. I can't tell you anything about the book except the title is 100% accurate. The obstacle is the way. That hard thing in front of me is the way to get to where I want to get. If I don't have all the necessary data and information to make a decision such that I don't lose anything, and most importantly, what am I most worried about? I don't want to lose credibility.
Mm.
I don't want to lose trust, right? There's some status that I don't want to lose. And this is a human thing. But the answer to those questions are on the other side of action. So we have to do it to figure out all that other garbage. I don't know if I went too all over the place, but that's where I'm at.
No, that was perfect. And I think, yes, that's the person that I saw, but I think that it was also you can tell when people are being authentic and when people have gone through some shit in their lives to be able to be that person, because I don't think that we can really become that type of person without going through some shit and figuring out how to actually rise above all of the missteps, all of the mistakes, all of the pain, the trauma, those types of things. That's when I think that's what I was attracted to, is that I could tell that you've gone through some shit in your life. That is what ends up rising up through those things.
Yeah. I mean, so there's another part to that, in that, yes, I've been through some shit in my life, and most of it I put myself through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other truth is I spent an enormous amount of time pretending that I didn't, right? Pretending that I was put together and, like hiding all of my crap. Like, there's this thing that some people do where when I question myself, like when I receive some kind of appreciation or recognition, it's uncomfortable for me. It always has been. And I don't think it's ever not gonna be, because I have, well, how old did I say I was this morning? 46. I got 46 years of
46,
baggage,
right?
right? Like of baggage that all I see is my shortcomings and my failures and the wicked things that I've done. So when I get recognition for doing good stuff, it's uncomfortable. Some people will tell me like, oh, you got to let go of self-limiting beliefs and you deserve and you're like, bro, thank you. I'm not saying I'm not worthy of this, and I am not saying that I didn't earn this. It is uncomfortable for me. There's a moment that I need to reconcile what's going on in my head and what's actually happening to do this thing. And so that weird pressure that people like to put, like, it's not the type of pressure that helps me, because the fact is I've done some shitty things in my life, and more importantly, I am still capable of doing those things. That's where my hesitation to embrace people's like unconditional acceptance is, because I'm a decision away from picking up another drink. I'm a decision away from manipulating you out of everything I want from you. It's a decision. And that's the thing that I'm reconciling when people say, oh, blah, blah, you should just embrace it. And like, you're right, I should. I need a little bit more time to embrace it, because I've got to check my ego here, because if I don't, it's going to get me in trouble. And then I'll have to write like a second and third edition of becoming the promise you're intended to be. And I don't want to be adding any more big, huge, stinky missteps to a second edition of a book. Because let me tell y'all, if you're going to write a book, it's a lot of damn work, and it ain't the type of work I like.
Interesting. So that last point that you just made is what I want to dig in a little bit. So what made you like so passionate about it, that you being this like person that needs stimulation and that really likes the sensory side of life, right? Such a risk taker, clearly. But what made you think, you know what, I gotta put this down for other people in the written form? I mean, it makes sense that you're doing podcasts and live streams. I mean, like, look at you. You fucking radiate
Thank you.
awesomeness. You just really do, right? You know, anyone, you're engaging, you've got this charisma. But like, why did you take the different turn and say, like, you know what, I got to put this into? Is it because books were important to you, or what was there?
No.
Jesse's like, no.
No. I mean, I like books. And since the invent of like Audible, I love books because I can
Okay.
I didn't know that I was an auditory learner until I found Audible.
Mm-mm.
Right? Like son of a gun. Like if I had this in school, it would have been easier. I would have pissed less teachers off. Anyways. So the first book, Lean in Love, that came, so we were doing the live streams, right? And we had, I think we did 6 or 7 of them. And Kirby Coates had reached out and said, hey, Jess, I wish there was like awesome live stream. She's like, I wish there was a way to go back and like just get the cliff notes of the conversations, because there's some really good stuff that Jen and I talked about, or that some of the other folks, like the comments that people would share their insights around relationships, etc. And because of the way I process my content, I record the video, download it, and then I upload it into Descript, and it transcribes the entire conversation. So I was like, oh, well, I got the transcriptions. I'll go and find the high points and send them to you. And I meant it when I said it. And then I started reading it, and about 10 minutes into it, I was like, hell no, I ain't doing this. Like, it was like 8.5, 9 hours total of content, right? Because there were multiple streams. I was working on my first book, the one that just released at the time. And so I reached out to Kim White, who coached me and helped me through the whole thing. And I said, hey, I got an idea. I have like 9 hours of transcribed content. Can we turn this into a book? She said, yes. I was like, okay, well, let's pause the other book. Let's just get this one done. So summary of that is, people signaled to me that there was some value that they got out of the conversations that could help, and they wanted it. So I said, okay, we'll figure that out. And so along that same string, Thomas LeMay, at the end of we started doing the after parties, right? So we do the live stream, and then we would have a conversation after. We call it an after party. On one of the after parties, Thomas pointed out, like, dude, this relationship stuff that you're talking about is what the construction industry needs. Like, we have the highest suicide rate, substance abuse, like, we take the lead in a lot of not so awesome stats. And so for me, there was purpose behind, like, oh yes, okay, we need to do this. So turn it into a book, talk to Jen, say, hey girl, yeah, let's do it. So we did it. So that's the one book. And that was like not a lot of fun, because I don't care about editing. I don't care about fonts, like all the stuff that you probably should care about if you're writing a book. I don't. There's a mazillion decisions that you have to make that I don't want to be making. The second book, or the second book, which is Becoming the Promise You're Intended to Be, that idea came from Lee Crump. So Lee, and he wrote the foreword for it. He's super awesome. Lee, what's up? I think he's home chilling right now. I was coaching him on the problem-solving effort at work. And for whatever reason, I shared some real truth, like the fact that I'm a convicted felon, right? And my wrestling with addiction. And he just looked, he's like, no way. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I never would have guessed that. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm a mess. And what he said to me was, he's like, you know, your story gave me hope for somebody that I had given up on. They're in exactly the same situation. Actually, you're a worse situation that they were in. And look at where you're at. Like, you gave me hope that their recovery is possible and what it could mean. And I was like, of course, tears, right? I'm like, oh man, thanks. And then he says, you need to write a book. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. He's like, no, you need to share your story, because you're going to help. not only like people that are in your situation, dealing with the law, dealing with addiction, blah, blah, blah. You're going to help them, but you're also going to help their family because their family's suffering too. And I said, shit. Okay. So that's where the idea of the book, like that book came from, or rather the purpose behind it was okay. So if my stories can help people, then putting it in book form makes sense because people consume that information and it can be shared widely. So that's, and I knew, oh, here we go with the book stuff. But anyways, that's where it came from.
So I'm pulling up Leslie's, and welcome, Leslie. She said, "You're not a mess. You're an inspiration." And so I love that.
I was gonna say the same thing. You do have to you have to switch that because you're not a mess. Maybe some of the choices you made, felt messy,
right?
And still feel messy, but you are, you're not a mess.
Agreed. Thank you.
So what are the whispers? What is it about those whispers?
And Jen, aren't you supposed to be like busy doing something, girl? What's up, Jen? So the whispers. I heard this Oprah told me. No, Oprah didn't tell me. I heard it on one of her shows. And this was like years and years and years ago. I heard her say, if you don't listen to the whispers, you will cause them to scream. Right. And so then I experienced the whispers. And so one concrete way is when before my last arrest, I was drinking. Like I was sober for a couple years and I started drinking again. That's a whole different story. Anyways, but people would like, hey man, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, why? Wow, I just noticed like you've been out a lot. Like, oh yeah, no, I'm good. And hey, are you okay? I noticed that you've been coming in a little more run down than normal. Hey, and so those were whispers, right? Mm. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Maybe you should take it easy. That's another, but the whispers started getting louder. And then I got handcuffs. I'm in the back of a damn cop car again. The whispers are screaming, right? So that's one example of them. And so for me, the whispers are, I get ideas. I see connections between things that are beyond me, right? Like I can't take credit for it because I didn't consciously move in that direction. But something whispered to me, pay attention to that and pay attention to this and look at the connection. And this is a way to help ease somebody's pain or a way to add value to somebody's life. And when I listen to those whispers, I can make a connection and do something to serve others, to share my gifts and talents with other people. No BS, like live streaming with Jennifer Lacey, those were whispers. I had those letters for 3.5 years. I didn't throw them away because I knew they were powerful. Like the ideas were going to help people. And I sourced them a little bit, tried to see if people were interested in it and blah, blah, blah. And then there was this, Felipe was doing a group live stream of the change makers. I said, hey, we need to get a woman on here and we need Jennifer Lacey. Like it's gotta be Jennifer, let's get her on. And Jennifer said, yeah, sure. So we did that. Like Jennifer and I before that never really had any kind of conversation except that I was like, there's something there. Let me connect it. So we did that. And then in the process of having that conversation, I got to get a real sense of her energy. And I was like, oh, maybe she's interested. Maybe I can have these conversations, crazy idea, whispers with that amazing human being, talk to her. And then that turned into something super profound. And so it's that, right? The book, I had an idea of how I wanted to write the book. The first book, I started it before the Lead in Love stuff. And I started it, I put it down, did the other book, picked it back up. So I read the original manuscript and it was like, man, what is this kindergarten crap? Like this is weak sauce, super, like you ever go to a restaurant and they tell you like they got hot sauce and it ain't hot. That's what it was, right?
It was weak sauce.
Weak sauce. So I said, man, I need to like, okay, I don't like what I did there. I don't want to rewrite that. What do I need to do? I took one of my little trips. I was in South Carolina and I said, I know what? Speech to text. Donna Bender actually was like, hey, you should try speech to text because it's easier to get the story out than writing. Because when I write, I want to edit as I'm writing and it disrupts the flow of the story or the idea. So I said, okay, speech to text. And I said, okay, what am I going to say? I said, well, I know what. Let me just write down the different stories, the learnings and missteps, right? So the stories, some of them are traumatic, some of them are painful, some of them are ugly things that I did. What did I do? What happened around that? And what did I learn from it? Such that those things I practice in my life, right? They could help other people get unstuck.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, let me record those stories. And then I'll do whatever. So I did that whisper. Like that wasn't my idea. It was a whisper, the data point that said to go this direction. So I did that. And then after I listened to him, like, oh my God, like that's what it is. It's just going to be a collection of stories, whisper, and so on and so forth. So it's that, you know, another easier way maybe to think about, a more practical way to think about it is data points. There's data points all over the place. How do I interpret them? How do we interpret them and connect them such that it creates a situation or venue for us to serve other people? Those are the whispers.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. So it's like what Sarah's, you know, it's your intuition, right, Sarah? I mean, in a lot of ways, right?
Absolutely.
Like the way he defined whispers.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have a question, Sarah? Because I was going to ask.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to ask, so if you could go back in time to like to 20-year-old Jesse, or maybe pre addiction or pre, whatever, you could go back and tell yourself like one thing. Now, I know that you've learned from all these things that you've gone through and that you embrace that journey. So I'm not saying, that you should feel guilty or shameful, but if you could go back, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Oh, easy. What I would tell my 20-year-old self is something that I tell myself regularly. And that is, you are enough.
Beautiful.
Like I needed to know that. I need to know it now. And I needed to know that so bad. Because I was in, and you've probably experienced this, or y'all have probably experienced this. If you can't tell, I'm kind of social, right? I can hang around with a bunch of people and make a bunch of friends. But for most of that period of my life, I could be surrounded by hundreds of people that all knew my name and still feel alone. And still feel like I didn't belong. So I was in this perpetual state of being less than, being different. And I just didn't think I was enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't fit enough. I wasn't educated enough. I wasn't hard enough. I wasn't like, all I was less than. All I was not enough. And I made a lot of decisions, and when I say decisions, I surrounded myself or subjugated myself to people that did not have my best interest in mind. And because I didn't believe I was enough, I just kind of followed those ebbs and flows of that type of life. And in order to like maintain their favor, I would do things that were against what I believed. Like I shouldn't say believe, what I knew inside was not right. Because I didn't think I was enough. I didn't go after, I didn't advocate for myself because I didn't think I was enough. I didn't go after things that I absolutely could have won or gotten because I didn't think I was enough. And so that's what I would tell myself. You are enough.
So what was the aha moment that led you to saying I am enough?
I don't know that there was an aha. I'll say that there's a series of aha moments.
Okay.
And they're in the book, but can I give two instead of just one?
Yeah.
Okay. So one is like kind of reset the direction. And then the other one was like, bam, this is it. So one, I was a panelist, like a judge of a group of parents that were doing their first like public speaking thing. They were presenting, and the question that was asked to the parents was, have you been this involved in your child's life, your child's academic career? Why or why not? And they all kind of gave their answer. One of the mothers, she said, no, I have two kids. The eldest, I was not involved. I kind of let them do whatever, stayed out of their business. And the outcome is less than awesome. And then she says, and I heard you speak, and she points right at me at the parent summit, whatever it was. And I heard you share your story about your brother and how you got all up in his business. And it's like, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to wear any t-shirt with any college name until it's the college that my kid is going to. And it's because of you. I was in tears in that moment. And when I got on my way home, I knew the job that I was doing, I was a superintendent at the time. I just knew that I could not serve or affect anybody's life that way if I continued doing my job. And the feeling of fulfillment that I got when she said, you did this to me, you helped me with this, back to my addictive nature, I said, oh, give me some more of that. I want more of that.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, like not that moment, but by the end of that day, I decided, okay, I want more of that. I need to do less of this. What am I going to do? So I can't do this job anymore, period. So I need to figure out how to do more of this. And I went down that, like, that's what I did. The second point was in rehab. I was in inpatient rehab after my last arrest. And I had been through rehab. I hadn't been to inpatient rehab before, but I'd been to outpatient rehab, right? Court mandated, right? It's not like I was, let me go help myself. The court said, do this or go to jail. It's okay, I'll go to rehab. And so I had been through a few of them, and I learned how, like, I'm an expert manipulator. And so I know the language that they speak. I know the indicators that they're looking for. So I said, I'm gonna go through this thing, and I'm gonna get a good grade and not go to prison, hopefully. And while I was there, one of the counselors pointed to, he pulled me to the side. He's like, hey man, like, I see what you're doing. I don't know why you're doing this. Your problem is not admitting. So, if anybody's familiar with 12-step programs, one of the things is you got to admit, right? Hi, my name's Jesse and I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict or whatever. And I get to go to all kinds of meetings because I got all kinds of issues. But the framework is, my name is, I am a. He's like, you don't have a problem admitting. Your problem is accepting. And I'm like, this is like, what mumbo jumbo is this? And he said, no. He says, what you haven't accepted is if you continue to live life this way, you will never become the promise you're intended to be.
Wow.
And in that moment, like, just like y'all have had that, I knew exactly what he was talking about. That the discontent, the self-loathing, the aspirational, like all of the good and the bad, like all of it, boom, it was that. Like, whatever that is, that promise that I'm intended to be, I will not be that he didn't say if you continue drinking, womanizing, using, like, he didn't say that. He said, if you continue living life this way.
Not accepting.
I said, oof. And so what did that mean? It's meant different things since then. But at that point in time, I was living life totally isolated and guarded and putting up all this facade and, razzle dazzle so that people couldn't get close to my tender little heart and hurt me. And so I had to change that. I had to start letting people in. I started to have to trust people.
Mm.
And it's been a process, but those are the two things that have happened. Two of the biggest things that would qualify as maybe those aha moments of like, I got to do this differently. And I have to do it out loud. I got to show up and show out so that other people can see the value of doing it. Right. Like if you think I'm shiny and I got my stuff together, I am now. I wasn't before. And so if you're there in the back before, there's hope. And if you're still like hiding and playing the game and wearing the costume, you don't have to, right? Like you can let it all out. And so it's kind of that. Demonstrate the behaviors you seek, and how can I become the promise I am intended to be? The short answer is share my gifts and talents with the world. That's it.
Yeah, I love that. And Jesse, prior to the show, I actually received a question from a friend from high school. And so I'm going to bring it up. They're not able to be on, but thinking about now. So anyone can stay motivated during the best of times. When you get stuck, so now, after you've learned these lessons, but now you're stuck, what do you do to find your path again?
I love it. So one real thing is when I'm stuck, that's a good time to rest. Right? Like rest.
You might be overwhelmed.
Yeah, I might be overwhelmed. I might be taking on too much. David Verbal, one of my coaches, pointed this out to me. He's like, Jess, you change and grow and learn super fast. He's like, but you're not pausing to learn what's happening around you. You're learning something that's going forward. He's like, so pause to understand the conditions, because as we grow as individuals, the conditions around us change, meaning people see us differently. People treat us differently. We're in different venues. We're in different spaces. We get invited to different experiences. That's 100% different than what it was 6 months ago. And if I don't pause to understand what that is and what it could mean, I'm still running through in my underoos without realizing I need to put pants on all of a sudden, right? And so what happens is I go too fast and then I get stuck because I'm not accelerating at 100 miles an hour anymore. And so I feel like I'm in quicksand. So rest. So that's one thing. Like when I'm stuck, like it's okay to be stuck. Being stuck is part of it. So rest. Like, let me rest. Let me understand. Now, another part in the being stuck, like, around the motivational idea, I've been at like, some people in my life say I'm ultra positive. Some people in my life say I'm ultra negative. And they're both right. And I behave the same. And so the people that in my life that see me as ultra positive, what I think they're commenting on is my energy. The people in my life that see me as ultra negative, what they're commenting on is my perspective. And so I see work, right? Like I'm gonna write a book. That sucks because it's a lot of stupid work. I'm gonna do a live stream. I like being live, but y'all know there's a whole lot of damn work that has to be done before that. So I see things in terms of the amount of time it's going to take to do something all the time. I see things through time. And because of that, it's very easy for me to be invited somewhere and say, no, I don't want to do that. And they're like, oh, why not? It's like, well, because it's going to be 3.5 hours of my time for no return. Like, man, you're negative. Like, okay, like, thank you. Like, fair enough. Anyways, the whole point in all of that is I am a positive person. I am positive that no matter how much things suck, I will get through them because I have overcome every damn hurdle I've had in my life leading up to now. And I am positive there's going to be a lot of suck in the future. And there's going to be sprinklings and spatterings of highlight reels. Life is not a highlight reel. Life is mostly suck. And so when I'm stuck, all I can do is make the next rightest decision. And that gets me back into movement. And sometimes it's just, I am going to get out of bed. Sometimes it's just, I'm going to go outside. That's the next rightest decision. And, the law of inertia, right? If I stay stagnant, I will remain stagnant. If I start moving, I will continue to move. And so sometimes it's just those small decisions. Like right now, I got piles of dishes in the kitchen. And the thought of washing all those dishes, I know it's going to take me about 45 minutes, probably an hour and 15 minutes, because I got to wash a batch, let it dry, put them away, wash another batch, because there's so much. And I wash them all by hand. And so it's like, oh, there's so many other things I'd rather do.
Yeah.
But to get past that stuck in the dishes is, I got my coffee mug right here. And instead of adding it to the pile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse it, wash it, put it up to dry. And while I'm there, maybe I'll wash a couple of other coffee cups, because they don't have caked on grease and eggs like everything else does. And so that's, a silly example of how I go about getting unstuck. Just do one small little thing and get that ball rolling, and the path will reveal itself.
And so Jen added, she loved that question. And when you are stuck, you also turn outward and share the situation with your tribe as well. And I think that that's
100%.
huge as well. Having a group of people that will help you to think in a different perspective. And Jennifer also added energy versus perspective. And so I don't know what exactly she means by that. Maybe you could elaborate on those two items.
So in terms of like having the, whatchamacallit, having the tribe, right? Having a community is something that I had to learn, right? So inviting people in for me means that I have to release control. And then I can curate my advisory council. So I have a personal advisory council, and those are individual people that I go to for very specific things. And so this is kind of the progression. And then I started like letting other people in. And so when I'm stuck and I'm bad headspace or stuck on like a real problem that I really don't know the answer to, I can covet that. And it's my precious, I'm not going to share with anybody. Or I can share it. And what I found is when I'm sitting there polishing it, it stays and it grows. But if I share it, the power of that problem goes down. Their ideas and insights, sometimes they'll say something like, oh, why didn't I think of that? I need to do that. Most of the time, just having the conversation around it helps me think about it differently, and I can do something with it. So when she talks about that, it's the value of community, right? Knowing that I can, and let me be clear, it's very easy to have a community of people that are going to support your growth and contributions to the world. It's also very easy to have a community of accomplices. And what I mean by that is, I haven't dated in a very, very long time, but there's been times where I'm talking to the boys. I'm like, man, we broke up. Don't worry about it, bro. Like, she wasn't worth it. And you get in this accomplished perspective of demonizing the other person, like, you're worth it. They should earn it. If they don't love you now, they won't love you then. Like, all that crap. That is not helpful, right? Like, it makes me feel good, but it doesn't help me grow beyond where I'm at. And so for folks out there in the omniverse, it really is, do you have accomplices that are going to feed into your ilk? Or do you have a community that is going to challenge you, support you, and keep you growing in the direction that you claim to be wanting to go down? Is that clear? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It
super
does.
helpful.
Yeah. So
Well,
Jesse, I have a weird question for you. So you said you don't have a girlfriend, correct?
Oh yeah.
You don't have, and you don't have a wife, I'm assuming.
No.
So for whatever reason, my intuition told me on our last show, we talked about manifesting someone. And I'm just wondering if you are the person and this person knows who they are. So I'm just going to put that out there. I know that means nothing to you, but it will mean something to this other person. And so for whatever reason, intuition wise, it just hit me. So we'll see whether that happens or not.
Awesome. Oh, I love, can I say like an ugly joke?
Oh, what
um,
joke.
I heard somebody say like, everybody's got a soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think it was a lady. She said, everybody has a soulmate, but I think mine died at birth. I was like, oh, I'm using that one. No, it's a joke. I'm not against. I'm actually very open to the idea of I know how valuable romantic relationships are, and I also know the amount of time that I'm willing to give it is not sufficient for other people. And so rather than set up hope that someday I will give more time, I just like no, we're not going to do that because I'm just going to hurt you, and because I got a million other things that I'm doing, and you're just one of them. You're not the thing. And I know that's an important thing because I wouldn't appreciate that either. But manifestation, you never know.
I'm just saying, I don't know because I know what this person said they were looking for. And I'm just saying it might actually be exactly that. So, anywho,
I like it.
so I do want to leave with this. So, Leslie said, please share Jesse's books and podcast information. So, can you add that to the comments afterwards so people
Absolutely.
have that type of information?
Yes, I will. I mean, I could say it like depthbuilder.com. You can have all of the stuff, but I will totally go back I'll find y'all on Facebook and make sure I put the links to make it super easy. Leslie Ann, I
Perfect.
appreciate you very much for like even being interested. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Jesse, I mean, this was a very quick hour and 7 minutes, honestly. I feel
Yes.
like we could have continued on. And I just want to say thank you for joining us today. And I think that a lot of this is really giving back to the universe. And so I appreciate you sharing those things, your gifts, your talents to the world. And I think that really half of the things that we accomplish in life are really revolve around making mistakes. That's the best way to really learn. And so I appreciate you sharing that with us today.
Awesome.
Me
Likewise,
too.
I appreciate y'all's energy. Kate, great questions. Sarah, great questions. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you to everyone else. And next week, be sure to join us. We're actually going to be talking about confidence. And so, Jesse, maybe you'll jump on as someone in the audience and talk about that as well, because I have a feeling you don't lack confidence. So, but we're looking forward to that topic. And then the week after, Kate will actually be by herself. We actually pre-recorded someone else. Her name is Rochelle. And so be sure to check those out coming up. And so thank you everyone for joining us. And Kate, thank you so much for being my lovely co-host. And Jesse, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you both. Go on, badasses. Let this fuel your Friday and your awesome weekend, and kick ass next week, guys.
Do it.